This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Bruchim Habayim to the Kollel Iger de Pirka here in Kew Garden Hills, New York. This is our last year before Shavuos. We have a sensational subject today. One of my favorite topics, something that I prepared many years ago. Actually, it's one of the first Shiurim I ever prepared. So I was still in Kollel. So now I have to give Shiur a few times a week. Then when I started, I gave a Shiur once a year, Shavuos night. It literally took me from Pesach until Shavuos to prepare the Shiur. That's what I was doing all day, preparing. This year took me at least 49 days. And Baruch Hashem, over the last couple of years, I learned some shortcuts. But this is really one of my earliest Shiurim, maybe one of the first. Maybe not, I think it is the first Shiur I ever prepared, going back 12, 13 years ago. Okay, any event, we're going to begin with a story. It was the winter of 1922, Tafresh Pei Beis, and one of the Balabatim, Rav Moshe Feinstein, fell deathly ill with a very strange sickness. His tongue became completely inflamed, and the Chayla was about to pass away. He asked everyone to leave the room, and he asked Rav Moshe to come in. He wanted to speak to Rav Moshe privately. And he turns to Rav Moshe and he says, Rav Moshe, let me explain to you, I want to tell you the reason that I'm ill. Last Shabbos we lay in Parshas Vayera, and we read about the Bnei Slot, who were Zoicha, that the Mashiach came from them. Of course, we know Moav was the son of the eldest daughter of Lot, and Rus came from Moav, David came from Rus. So in fact, David Hamelech comes from the Bnei Slot, and I came out of Shul, and I was so bothered. How could the daughters of Lot do such a despicable act? And they weren't even embarrassed about what they did. They called him Moav, Me'av. They publicized the fact that they lived with their father and that the child was born from the father. And the man was so disturbed, and the Rebbe would bring Mashiach out from the Bnei Slot, and he sort of disparaged the daughters of Lot. So that night the man had a dream. And in the dream appeared to him two very old ladies whose faces were completely covered. The ladies said, Shalom Aleichem Reb Yid, we are the daughters of Lot, and we've come to respond to your taina. We were from the family of Avraham Avinu. We were miraculously saved from Sodom. So think about it. We're from Avraham Avinu. A miracle happened to us. As far as we know, nobody in the world survived. We could have easily made the claim that our father was Nesaber Me'ela from the Shechina. We could have made the claim of the Immaculate Conception. That was the obvious claim to make. I mean, nobody else is in the world. We're miraculously saved. We come from Avraham Avinu. But we intentionally called our child Moav, Amoin, to indicate that we were not Mesaber from the Shechina, but we were Mesaber from our father, to publicize a child could only have a father, in order to protect the world from a false Messiah. Therefore, the Rebbe Shalom rewarded us, Mida Keneged Mida, quid pro quo. Then the zechus of protecting the world from a false Messiah, we were Zoicha, that the Mashiach Ha'amiti came from us. So they say to him, take that. What do you have to say about that? The man then turns to Rav Moshe and he says, that is why I'm being punished. He then turns his face to the wall and he dies. Now you'll say, where did you read that story? This story is printed in the Hakdama of the Igros Moshe Chelek Ches, where Rav Moshe says he heard the man tell the story and he feels it's a true story. That's the reason why they were Zoicha, to have Mashiach come from them. That this account is La'amita Shal Torah. But be it as it may, what do we see from here? We see the Rebbe Shalom was already sowing the seeds of the Mashiach already back in time. Back in the time that Lot was in the city of Sodom. In fact, if you look in the Medrash Rabbah, Parshas Vayera, Parsha Nun, that the pasuk says, Matsasi David Avdi, I have found my servant David. So to speak, David was lost and the Rebbe Shalom found him somewhere. Where did the Rebbe Shalom find David? Hamelech, says the Medrash, Heichan Matsasi Oisai Bistoim. That David Hamelech was, so to speak, lost in Sodom, and the Rebbe Shalom plucked him out of Sodom, rescued him from Sodom, otherwise he would have been lost forever. Likewise, when the Malachim say to Lot, we're going to save Shetei b'noisecha hanimtza'is, your two daughters who are found. The Medrash says that they were alluding to the two mitzios that are found in Sodom. Who are they? Rus HaMoaviyah and Naama HaAmmonah. So we see that the seeds of Mashiach were being sowed and being prepared and being orchestrated all the way back to the wicked city of Sodom. Let's go back even further. The Medrash Rabbah, Parsha Nun Aleph, Ois Ches, number 3 on your sheet, says that the Benois Lot, it seems like they themselves were planning to bring about the Mashiach, because when they decided to live with their father, they said, Unechaya me'avinu zara, we will bring life from our father seed. Says the Medrash, Unechaya me'avinu ben inksev. It didn't say they wanted to have a son, Ella zara, oisoi zera shuba mimakam acher, a descendant that would have come from elsewhere. Ve'ezeh zeh Melech HaMashiach. So the Medrash reveals to us that somehow the daughters of light seem to have been planning this out, and they were going to orchestrate and bring about the ancestry of Mashiach on that fateful evening. In fact, the Eitz Yosef says the gematria of Unechaya me'avinu zara is gematria zeh Melech HaMashiach. So there you have it. This was the plan of the daughters of light. So it sounds like a very nice way to bring about Mashiach, through the incest of a father and a daughter. I mean, the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't have a better way to bring about Mashiach. I mean, isn't Mashiach supposed to bring the world to the highest levels of Ruchnius? We know the Chassam Sofer writes, and it's even a Sforno, that when Mashiach comes, the world will be on such a high madrega, that the Rebbeinu Shalom will dwell in every individual to the extent that we will not need a third Beis HaMikdash as a place of Hashras HaShechina. The third Beis HaMikdash will only be needed as a makam of Hakravas Karbanos, but in terms of where the Rebbeinu Shalom will dwell, it will be B'chal makam asher azker shemi avoy elecha uveirachticha. It will be v'nasati mishkani b'soichechem. The Mashiach will usher in the era of Umalaha Aretz Deo es Hashem. Why would the Rebbeinu Shalom bring about Mashiach Tzidkenu in such an immodest way? Why would Hashem carry out such a sacred mission in such a profane way? You know, if anything good would have come out from that incest, it would have been a pliyah. But for Mashiach to come out, let me show you the words of the Sukkas David, Reb David Kfiyat, enunciates this question quite clearly. The end of number 6. V'lama ira zeh b'derech genai. Why would the Rebbeinu Shalom create this in a disparaging way? Hashem could have taken and created these nations. In other words, why does the Rebbeinu Shalom have to make this seemingly very improper episode to create the coming of Mashiach? That is a major question on this particular story. We move on. What is the next step in the creation of Mashiach? Well, we know Mashiach has to come from which Shevet? Shevet Yehuda. And where do Yehuda's descendants come from? Which woman? Tamar. Also another very becoming story, right? Imagine, if you would hear that story, you got a shidduch, right? And you heard about the girl's parents, that he was walking down the street one day, and he decided to take up a zoina, and that's where this girl came from. I have a feeling you would tell the shadchan. Do you have anybody else on any other ideas? You know, I think she might have the same name as my wife. You know, as Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid over here. I don't think we could. What's going on? What's the next step in the creation of Mashiach? The Medrash says, the Medrash in Medrash Rabbah, Parsha Pehei Ois Aleph. Rav Shmuel bar Nachman Pasach. Think about what's happening over here. They had just sold Yosef. Yaakov Avinu was mourning. The Shvatim were mourning. Ruvain was mourning. And what was going on? The Rebbeinu Shalom was creating the light of Mashiach. You look in the Medrash. Vayhi ba'esahi. Rav Shmuel bar Nachman Pasach. Ki anoichi yadati es hamachshavos. Shvatim hayu asukim b'mechirasa shel Yosef. Yosef hayu asuk b'sakoi v'tanisai. Ruvain haya asuk b'sakoi v'tanisai. Yaakov haya asuk b'sakoi v'tanisai. The world is cloudy, gloomy, dark. V'Yehuda haya asuk likach la'isha. And Yehuda's busy getting married. V'akadosh baruch hu oisek boirei oiroi shel Melech HaMashiach, and this is repeated in the Yalkut Shimoni as well. So let's think. Who was this scenario? What was the scenario with which Rebbeinu Shalom created Oiroi Shel Mashiach? Yehuda and Tamar. And how is Tamar disguised? She's disguised as a Zoina. Okay, so let's put aside the halachic aspects of what happened. Was it mutter for Yehuda? Was it not mutter for Yehuda? Lamaisa, the Medrash tells us that there are no kindness on Yehuda. Yehuda didn't do anything wrong. The fact is, Yehuda didn't want to do it, the Medrash says, and he was going to resist. And the Rebbeinu Shalom sent the angel that's appointed over Taiva, and the angel gave him a little bit of a nudge, and the angel said, "Hey, Yehuda, where are you going?" Yehuda said, turned around. Yehuda went the other way. He was about to run away, and the Malach chapped Yehuda, pulled him to her, said, "Yehuda, meheichan malachim aimdim, meheichan gedolim aimdim, vayirela derech bal karchai." Meaning, the Rebbeinu Shalom removed Yehuda's bechira. That's what the Medrash says. Okay, it's not my opinion. I'm telling you opinion. I'm telling you what the Torah Shabbat Peh says, that Yehuda had no choice. Fine, I get it. We have no tightness on Yehuda. Yehuda remains kadosh v'tahar. But if the Medrash is saying that the Rebbeinu Shalom is orchestrating the creation of the light of Mashiach, I mean, aren't there better ways to do this? Can you, go to the Beis Yaakov, get the most edel girl, go to Lakewood, go get the biggest Mitzuyan in Lakewood, and then they'll sit together for 5 minutes, and then you make a l'chaim, do it b'derech kavod. No. How are we going to do it? Tamar is going to disguise as a Zoina, and it's going to be, a soap opera. What's going on over here? This is how the Rebbeinu Shalom is creating Mashiach. I understand, there's no chet, there's no taina. It's Yehuda remains Kadosh V'tar. But isn't there a more bakavadik way? Isn't there a finer way? Isn't there a more edel way to bring about Mashiach? Why does it have to be in such an unbecoming way? See, I don't know, we'll throw it under the rug. That was ancient history. But at least when Mashiach was created, everything was Mahadran Mina Mahadran. So let's think. Let's go to the story of Rus. Para Gimel Pasuk Daled. So Rus tells, Naomi tells Rus, I have a great idea for you. Boaz, the Gadol Hadar. So here's the plan. Vahi b'shachvai, when he's laying down, the Adaris Hamakam Asher Yishkav Sham, go there, V'galis margeloisav v'shachaft. Okay? I'm not translating. V'galis margeloisav v'shachaft. You uncover his feet. Mamish, it's a great idea. What good advice. I mean, what in the world is Nami thinking? This is how you can make the zivug of the father of Mashiach, Be'ima Shamalchus, that you're going to sneak into the silo while he's sleeping. V'galis margeloisav. I'm not going to use my words. Let me share with you the words of the Igara Shmuel. Take a look at number 10. Igara Shmuel was written by Rav Shmuel di Uzida. Shmuel di Uzida was born in 1540 in Sfas. He had a very chashuv chavrusa. Who's his chavrusa? He was a chavrusa of the Arizal. Okay? Also a chavrusa Rav Chaim Vital. So he's probably someone who had the inside scoop on what's really going on behind these episodes. And he asked the following question. By the way, he also wrote maybe the most well-known commentary on Pirkei Avos. Medrash Shmuel on Pirkei Avos was written by Rav Shmuel di Uzida. So he wrote a commentary on Megillas Rus. I remember from many years ago, maybe 15 years ago, that it wasn't published. This appears in the Kovetz Mevakshe Torah. Anybody remember the Kovetz Mevakshe Torah? There was a Talmud Chacham who sat in Sanhedrin Morcheved on his typewriter, and he made very interesting contrasim. And he printed this comment of the Igara Shmuel. So Igara Shmuel asks like this. He says, V'hinei, yesh number 10, yesh bazeh safek einenu katan. I have a question here, and it ain't small. Ki im gadol v'atzam ad ma'od. It is great and powerful. L'zeh b'roiseinu l'nami hakshera. We see this pious, genuine woman, Nami. Yoyetzes l'rus kalasa, advising her daughter-in-law, Rus. Poyel Meguna Kazeh, such a disgusting act. Hakezoina Yasala Kalasa. She making her daughter-in-law like a harlot. Laleches Lishkav Margalois Bayaz. To put her in such an isayon where she could get hurt, she could get damaged. I want to tell you something. Who could tell you for the free vacuum cleaner? Who could tell me? In what perek does David HaMelech say, Chatzois laila akum l'cha, akum lahoidus l'cha mishpatei tzidkecha? I awake every night at midnight to thank you, Hashem. We all know. David put his harp by the window, so that when the wind would blow in, it would blow the harp and wake him up at midnight. What parak of Tehillim is that in? Kuf Yotes. All right. You're going to come to my house tonight to vacuum, right? So Kuf Yotes. Chatzois laila akum lahoidus l'cha al mishpatei tzidkecha. Why did David HaMelech wake up every night at midnight? What was he thanking Hashem for? Says the Medrash, every midnight David HaMelech said, Ribono Shel Olam, I thank you, because many midnights ago when my grandmother Rus woke up Boyaz. So imagine, you have the Gadol Adar, and all of a sudden there's a Zoyna sneaking up. He said, get out of here! What are you doing here? He would have called the police and have her arrested, locked up forever. You know, she would never get out unless Trump became president, right? She'd be stuck there forever. And then, more than that, the Medrash says, he could have given her one curse, and she would have died. Right? If in the Gemara, an Amora looks at you, and the person turns into a pile of bones, that's an Amora. Imagine if Boaz gave her a bad look. So David HaMelech thanked the Ribono Shel Olam every single night that somehow her grandmother survived that fateful evening. Says the Yigar Shmuel, wasn't there a nicer way to do this? By the way, to paraphrase the Alshich, Hamebli ein shadchanim b'Yisrael. Is there a lack of shadchanim? Every Jew, doesn't matter what your profession is, you could be a doctor, a lawyer, a shiva, every Jew is a shadchan on the side. So was there a lack of shadchanim? Naomi should have gone to Boaz and say, Boaz, I have a great suggestion. But, everybody is looking for ways to solve the shidduch crisis. I have yet to hear this method as a mahalach in the shidduch crisis. What in the world is Naomi telling Rus to do? Okay, so you say, it's a coincidence. Lot and his daughters, Yehuda and Tamar, Rus and Boaz. But at least Yishai, Yishai is one of the 4 people who never did a chet, so at least everything over there was badatz, everything over there was on the highest level. Not so. The Sefer Moyadim Uzmanim of Sternbach brings down from the Chida, from a Medrash Yalkut Makiri, from the Kisei Ari, that after Yishai had 7 children, Yishai said, I don't know, maybe I made a big mistake over here. Maybe my grandmother Rus was wrong for marrying Boaz. Maybe my grandfather Boaz made a mistake. Maybe Doeg was right. And lo yavai moyavi v'gam moyavis b'kal Hashem. In that case, all my children are psulim. So how am I going to have kosher yichos mikanol haba? So Yishai went to his wife and he said, I really appreciate all the years, but have a great day. And he separated from his wife. He then decided that he was going to live with the shifcha. That would create, all the children to be born would be avadim. An eved does not have a psul of moyav. He would then free the eved, and his future children would be kisherim. You hear this? They didn't teach this to you in elementary school, I know. That Yishai made up with his shifcha. One particular evening, he was parish min ha'isha, and he made up with the shifcha. The shifcha was loyal to her mistress. The shifcha told Eshes Yishai, what was her name? Natseves ben Adoel, I believe. And the shifcha switched places with Nitzeves. Nitzeves switched places with her. So Yishai thought it was the shifcha. It was really his wife. Few months later, she's pregnant. His wife is pregnant. So Yishai said, well, wait a second. It wasn't me. The boys knew what their father did. They said to them, who is this from? They paskin she was mezaneh. They paskin whoever's going to be born is a mamzer and will be killed. So when David HaMelech was born, they took the poor baby and they threw him out the window. They threw him into the garbage to the dogs. This is what the pasuk means. Says the Chida, says Arizal, says a Medrash, Muzar ha'yisi le'echai, I was a mamzer to my children. This is what it means. Miyad kelev. To my brothers, thank you. Hatzin miyad kelev yichidasi, you saved me from the dogs. It's an amazing thing. Probably they didn't know he wasn't a mamzer until Shmuel came and said, he's the melech. They said, one problem though. The melech has to come from a kosher woman. This kid is illegitimate. Not only is he not the king of Israel, he's not even a kosher child. So, very nice, very kosher ways that David HaMelech is being born. So think about it. Of all the impropriety that has transpired here, the most blatant act of impropriety is Yishai thinking that David is conceived from the Shivcha, and it turns out it was his own wife. And if this was the only question about the Yichus of David HaMelech, it would be hard to understand. But to point out that every step in the creation of the ancestry of David HaMelech is shrouded in seeming impropriety. Why did the Rebbeinu Shalom bring it this way? Starting with the daughters of Lot, Yehuda v'Tamar, Rus and Boaz, Yishai v'Natzaves. What's going on over here? Why did the Rebbeinu Shalom? You can't say it's a mikra, you can't say it's a coincidence. Obviously, the Hashgacha Elyono was such that in order for Mashiach to come down to the world, it was only able to come in through these means. What's the pshat over here? Well, comes the Igara Shmuel, and after giving various suggestions and rejecting them, he's megala to us an amazing yesod. Says the Igara Shmuel, Naminu Baruch HaKodesh, that Malchus Beis David, number 10, the second paragraph of number 10, that Malchus Beis David was going to come from Boaz and Rus, that the Oiroi Shel Mashiach was being created, the light of Mashiach was being created. Says the Igara Shmuel, anytime the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to bring a davar shebekdusha into the world, someone's going to wake up and raise their ugly head and rear their ugly head and come up with ketrugim and come up with accusations to prevent the davar shebekdusha from coming to fruition. Who is that? The Satan. Therefore, says the Igara Shmuel, in order to blind the Satan, Nami needed to cloud his vision, circumvent the Satan, that if we're going to take Naomi, if we're going to take Rus and Boaz, and we're going to have they're going to have a sit-in like the proper way, there's no way in a million years the Satan is going to let this happen because he knows what the result of this union is going to be. What Nami has to do is she has to mask this Maisa in something that the Satan says, hey, this is my kind of thing. I'm in on this. You need help? I'll be the first to help. I'll be on your side. This way I don't need to be mekatreg. So what Nami needed to do is give the Satan his chelek, he'll back off, and by doing so, Malchus Beis David would come to fruition. By the way, don't try this at home. Okay? Now you'll say that sounds very Kabbalistic. This sounds very mystical. Did Nami really know this? Is this really the case? Does this have to be? Says the Chafetz Chaim, none less than the Chafetz Chaim himself. By the episode of Yehuda and Tamar, please take a look at the words in number 13. Vayete leha el adorech. Says the Chafetz Chaim, Mikan haisa haschala lamalchus Beis David. The story of Yehuda and Tamar was the beginning, the seeds of Malchus David v'lamelech HaMashiach. Why is the Torah telling us this story? Why is the episode of Yehuda and Tamar in here? Shekol ha'inyanim hayoyser gedoyla miniskavim. The greater something is, the more lofty something is. Hasatan ma'akev aleihem. The Satan tries to interfere. V'yein eitza acheres. There is no other way. Zulas la'akev es haderech. You need to do it in a crooked way. Ulafayes es Satan, to seduce the Satan. Meaning any great achievement that comes in Ruchnias, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to take the Satan head on. You need to throw him a curveball. Ki b'derech hayashara, derech hayatoira, hayasatan mekachrik, v'hayotzin l'paya. It would never happen, says the Chafetz Chaim. Even the Rebbeinu Shalom has to play with the Satan. Because once the Rebbeinu Shalom created the Satan, he endows him with power. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is not going to just reject the system. Of course Rebbeinu Shalom can override the system, but he has to respect the game. He created a force. He's not just going to override the system. He understands that for what he needs to take place, take place, it has to be in a roundabout way. Says the Chavetz Chaim, that's why you have the story of Yehuda and Tamar. V'chein hoya inyanim oived avi aviv shel David, sheyatza meirus hamoyaviyah. Says the Chavetz Chaim, okay? This is not Kabbalah. This is, the Chavetz Chaim wrote B'derech HaPshat, that the only way to understand the episode of Yehuda and Tamar and Rus and Boaz is through this principle called Shoichad L'Satan. The what? Yeah. Very good. This idea of Shoichad L'Satan is already sourced in the Rishonim and in the Midrashim. But now we understand why every step in the creation of Malchus Beis David had to be somewhat tainted. Starting with the story of Lot and his two daughters, Yehuda and Tamar, Boaz and Rus, and Yishai and his wife. Because as long as the Satan is aware that something great is happening, he's going to stand there and he will not let it take place. The Igera Shmuel compares this to Sar Lazazel, like the Pirkei Rabbi Elazar. What is the Sar Lazazel? It's the holiest day of the year. The Rambam writes Sar Lazazel is mechaper for Mezid, for Shoigeg, Tshuva. Sar Lazazel wipes out everything. How? So can you imagine the effects of the Sar Lazazel? This is the greatest carbon of the year. There is no way that the Rebbeinu Shalom, that the Satan is going to just stand by idly. He's going to rear his ugly head and interfere. So what do we have to do? So Hashem commands Klal Yisrael, throw the Satan a bone, give him something, make it seem like you're offering him a carbon, make it seem like you're giving him something. This is the secret of the Sar Lazazel. By the way, the concept of Shoichad L'Satan is already found in the Rishonim. Please take a look in the Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra in Vayikra, Perek Tezayin, Pasuk Ches, he makes number 14, makes a very cryptic statement. Says the Ibn Ezra, if you want to understand the secret of the Sar Lazazel, Ani agalek tzas hasoid beremez. I will reveal part of the secret in a remez. How is that? When you get to 33, you'll understand it. When you get to 33, you'll understand it. So most people here are not 33 yet, so that maybe they won't understand. What does it mean when you get to 33? So, some of Farshim say that if you count from this pasuk 33 psukim, you get to the pasuk Perek Zayin, pasuk Zayin, number 16. That the Sar Lazazel is a reference to Sa'ir, that we're bringing a carbon to Seir, the Sarai Shal Esav. But still, what's the secret? Why would we bring a carbon to the angel of Esav? Says the Ramban, an amazing thing. The Ramban paraphrases the pasuk in Mishlei. He says, look in the underlined part, V'hinei Rabbi Avram neman ruach mechasa davar. Rabbi Avram was a faithful man who covers over the matter. Aval ani harachel megala soidai. I'll be the Baal Lashon Hara who reveals the secret. Why? Shekvar gilu oiser rabim. Because Chazal have already revealed it to us in the Bereshis Rabbah and the Pirkei Rabbi Elazar that the Sa'ir is Esav. And then he quotes Pirkei Rabbi Elazar that they would give the Samach Mem his carbon, Shoichad, so that the Samach Mem does not interfere with our carbon. To the point where this bribery and this trickery is so effective and so powerful that the Pirkei Rabbi Elazar says that on Yom Kippur, who becomes our greatest adversary? The Satan himself. To the point where the Satan starts to speak about the great praise of our great defendant. Our great defendant. So our great defendant. In fact, it says over here that the Samach Mem comes before the Rebbeinu Shalom Yom Kippur, And when the Samach Mem sees that on Yom Kippur, Klal Yisrael has no chataim, the Ramban brings down, the Samach Mem says, Ribbon Shalom, Ribbon Kol Ha'olamim, Yesh L'cha Am Echad Ba'aretz, K'malachei HaShares B'Shamayim. Malachei HaShares are barefoot. Klal Yisrael, they're barefoot on Yom Kippur. Malachei HaShares don't eat and drink. Klal Yisrael on Yom Kippur don't eat and drink. This is the Satan talking. The Satan becomes our defendant. Malachei HaShares Shalom Beineim on Yom Kippur. Klal Yisrael Shalom Beineim. Malachei HaShares are clean from any sin. So too Klal Yisrael on Yom Kippur are clean from any sin. Be it as it may, the Ramban says Azazel is a compound word. Azal, the fierce one leaves, meaning by giving the Satan a bone, by making it look on the outside as if we're serving the Samach Mem, he becomes our defendant. But what we see from here is that the Satan is a very powerful force to reckon with, to the point where even the Ribbon Shalom does not just dismiss the Satan. Certainly, if the Rebbe Shalom wanted, he could just create Mashiach, and nobody's going to stand in his way. But he doesn't do that. He respects the system. The system is, there's a Satan, and you can't take him head on. Marv Rabbeisai, even at the time that the Torah was given, the Rebbe Shalom had to deal with the Satan. The Medrash says, the Gemara says in Masechta Shavuos, look at number 17. Amar Rabbi Shiur ben Levi, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the Torah, the Satan said, Ribbon Shalom, where's the Torah? Where'd it go? So Hashem said, I gave it downstairs. So he went to the Eretz. Where is it? So the Eretz said, I don't know, go to the Yam. So he went to the Yam. The Yam said, I don't know where, I don't know. So the Satan says, I looked everywhere, I don't know where the Torah is. So Hashem said, go to Ben Amram. He went to Ben Amram. He said, Ben Amram, where's the Torah? Moshe says, what do I got to do with the Torah? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, Moshe, you're a liar. You're a liar, Hashem says. You have the Torah. So Moshe says, I should have the chutzpah to say that I have your Torah? And Hashem said, you're right. Since you made yourself small, I'll make you great. So Tosha has a simple question. The Satan is not a fool. You know how I know he's not a fool? Because he outsmarts us every single day. So he's obviously a very smart guy. So why doesn't he know where the Torah is? I mean, I thought the Rambam writes the most momentous occasion in the history of the world was the giving of the Torah. Literally, like the whole world shook. The Klal Yisrael died when Hashem gave us the Torah. And the Satan doesn't know where the Torah is? Says Tosfos, Hashem distracted the Satan at the time of the giving of the Torah so that he shouldn't know that Hashem's giving Torah, because if he would know, he would never let it happen. What do you mean? Hashem wouldn't have been able to give us the Torah because the Satan would have interfered? Yes, correct. That's what Tosfos says. That the Satan has been endowed with such a strong power that even the Ribbon Shalom himself respects that system and has to distract the Satan, otherwise the Torah would never have been given. There's another Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Torah is called Toshia. So everybody thinks, oh, you know why the Torah is called Toshia? Because Torah, mateshes koichoi shaladam. Torah makes you weak. That's the first pshat of the Gemara. The second pshat of the Gemara is it had to be given secretly. Why? So that the Satan shouldn't know about it. Let me share with you what the Shla HaKadosh writes. The Shla HaKadosh writes that this idea that when a great thing is about to happen, the Satan will rear his ugly head and it's almost impossible to overcome, is something we see throughout our history. Every time Klal Yisrael reaches a tremendous maila, the Satan comes in and makes us sin big time. Number one, the giving of the Torah. Right after Satan, the moment he finds out about, where's the Torah? Oh, you have it. Chedo Egal the next day. That's it. There's only a certain amount of time you could contain him. Afterwards, he's like, how could you do that? That's the first instance of the Shla. Second instance, Hashem gives Klal Yisrael the Degalim. The Degalim were the banners that represented the banners of the Malachim and Shamayim. At that point in time, the Rebbe Shalom rested on Klal Yisrael. Shuva Hashem Rivos Alfei Yisrael. Immediately, Vayhiya Kimasainim. Klal Yisrael were about to go into Eretz Yisrael. Oh, no way. Meraglim. Hashem was maskim to the brachos of Bilam. Immediately, Cheda Baal Pa'ar, says Ashla. Says Ashla, listen to these words. Klal Devarav. It's a rule that was never broken. B'misha oila l'mayla v'gdula az misgara boy ha-satan. Anytime someone's about to reach a high madrega, the satan comes in full force. Now, nobody here ever heard of such a thing, but they say that sometimes during shidduch process, there are disagreements between the mechutanim. Right? I know nobody ever heard of such a thing. It could be, in other communities, that they say that sometimes when there's a shidduch, there's sometimes quarrels about the money. Says the Gemara, the Gemara says, not only sometimes, there never was a completely peaceful shidduch. Lekka ksuba dolei ramu beitigra. Why? Because Rebbeinu Shalom is about to create a davar noira v'niskav, a Beis Yisrael, a future of Klal Yisrael. The Satan has to get something here, otherwise he ain't letting it happen. Everybody knows we break a cup at the chasana. Why? So most people think it's because we have to sing shweki. Right? That's not the real reason, though. The Shlah says the real reason is because such a great thing is about to happen. The Satan says the Satan would never let it happen, so we have to give him a bone. So we say, so break the cup, okay? We're going to break a cup for you. Oh, okay, fine. Otherwise, if you don't break that cup, there's an incredible Radvaz. Now, who's the Radvaz? The Radvaz was Rav David Zimmer, the Rebbe of the Arizal. He was a Rav in Cairo for 40 years. If you ever put on tefillin and looked at your tefillin, you'll notice that there are 3 hairs sticking out of the tefillin sharash. You ever notice? Those 3 hairs have to come from an egal. Wow, such a beautiful mitzvah. Every day we put on tefillin sharash. Why? Why? The last type of hair I would want to put in the tefillin sharash are the hair of an egal. That's basically, Ribayna Shalaylam, I know I did a few mitzvahs today, but please don't forget about the chet ha'egal. Imagine, right? The greatest mitzvah we do. What do we do? Egal hairs. Says Radvaz, that's right. The mitzvah tefillin is such a holy mitzvah that if you wouldn't make it look to the Satan as if we're reminding Hashem about our chataim, a Jew would never be able to put on tefillin. The Satan wouldn't let it happen. Now the Satan, at least he lets us get up in the morning. He thinks, the Yid says to the Satan, I'm going to say Amen Yishmei Rafa. No, you're not. No, I'm going to remind Hashem about the Satan. Okay, fine, so go. Go to Shachris. It's okay. Otherwise it would never happen. So there is no, taking this idea into mind, there is no inyan gadol v'niskav, there is no more lofty concept and creation than Mashiach himself. Now we understand why every step in the creation of Mashiach had to be laced with seeming impropriety. Otherwise, the Satan would simply not let it happen. So what does this have to do with us? Shoichad l'Satan. How do we give shoichad l'Satan? This is very dangerous. Shoichad l'Satan. Tell the Satan, I'm going. Today's Monday. It's 10:20. I got to go to the Shiur. No, you're not going to the Shiur. You might learn something. Okay, Satan, here. So I'll go to McDonald's on the way to the Shiur. Okay, fine. You could go to. Obviously, well, how would we put this principle and this concept into practice in a practical way? How does Sheikhal Satan apply to us in a practical way? So the Michtam Eliyahu, in the first volume, page 262 to page 263, the Michtam Eliyahu brings that the concept of Sheikhal Satan is actually the most powerful tool that we have against the Yetzer Hara, provided that you use it with the proper guidelines. And that is as follows. If the Satan ever comes to a person and he says, do an Aveira, so, if anybody ever comes to the Satan and says, if the Satan ever comes to a person and say, do an Aveira, the worst way to take on the Satan is say, no, I'm not going to do the Aveira, I don't want to go to Gehenna, I don't want to. if you try to take on the Satan head on, you will lose every single time. Rarely can a person ever overcome the temptation of the Satan. The example given is as follows. Even in the physical world, the more pressure you put on something, the more that item exerts pressure back on you. You go like this, the person will go like that. You go like that, he'll go like that. So what you need to do is you have to give the Satan shaychad. How do you give him shaychad? You're walking down the street and the Satan says, look, look! If you can tell the Satan, no, I'm not going to look. The Satan can say, yeah, but you're missing out. You don't know what you're missing out. There's no way you're going to overcome. So you can't tell the Satan no. You know what you could do? You say, Satan, taka, it's a good eitzah that I should look. So next time I'm going to look. This time I'm not going to look. Oh, really? Next time you're going to look? Okay, fine. So you continue walking. You're not going to look this time. And next time you look. And next time the Satan's already gone. But you have to give in something. So you're not actually you're making it look like you're giving him shaychad, but you're not actually giving shaychad. For example, like this. It's 11:20, and you feel your phone buzzing. But in the middle of learning, you can't get the phone. So you tell the Satan, if you can tell the Satan, no, I can't get the phone. The Satan's going to say, well, what do you mean? Probably, the President of the United States is calling. He probably wants to ask your advice about how to deal with foreign policy. And, so you tell the Satan, you know what? You're right. Phone calls are very important in the middle of Shiur. The next time the phone rings, I'm going to get the phone. Oh, really? Next time? Fine. Next time it's okay. By the way, the Michtam said, you should know, this works not only between a person and the Satan, but even in interpersonal relationships as well. Go to sleep now! No! If you don't go to sleep now, then you're not going to eat supper for 5 years. I'm not going to eat supper. I don't want to eat supper for 5 years. I don't need to eat. If you don't go to sleep now, you're not going to get an afikoyim. Your children are not going to get an afikoyim present. Your grandchildren are not going to, until Mashiach comes. Good. I don't even want an afikoyim present. The stronger you insist on something, the more stubborn the other person becomes. So the kid's in the middle of playing. You don't say go to sleep now. Would you like to play for 2 more minutes and then go to sleep? Yeah, okay. And then they play for 2 more minutes, and then they go to sleep. But you can't take them head on. If you take them head on, then it creates an even stronger resistance. You have to give in a little bit, whether another person or with the Satan. Now you have to be careful. Don't give in too much. But when it comes to the Satan, you see now the question is, why does it work? Why is the Satan so gullible? Why is it that you could tell the Satan, okay, next time I'll give in to you? Why is the Satan so easy to trick? So the Michtam says, you're just giving him a taste of his own medicine. The Satan is so gullible because we're so gullible. Because he gets us to fall for his shenanigans so easily. Because we often fall for his tricks, so the Rebbe Shem has to make him susceptible that we could trick him just as easily as he gets us. That's the concept of shaychad l'satan, which we see has to be used even on a global scale, if we may say. There are many streams that they have a hard time understanding, swallowing the way Eretz Yisrael is today and the way it was created. Well, with this concept, for Eretz Yisrael to have been created, imagine if all the Gedolei Yisrael would have gotten together and made Eretz Yisrael al pi ha-Torah, al pi halacha. You think the Satan would have ever let that occur? So sometimes Yibam Shem has to create things for Klal Yisrael in ways that might not be to your exact liking, because otherwise it ain't going to happen, pal. Otherwise it's just not going to be. That's the way the Yibam Shem operates. He respects the system. There is a force of Tumah in the world. There is a Satan in the world, and you can't just easily dismiss him and cast him aside. Well, what? The Satan reads the sheet and he knows it? All right, but just like he tricks us easily, we could trick him as well. Marv Rabboisai, let's take it the next step. The issue is the Medrash. The Medrash we mentioned earlier says, Matsasi David Avdi, I found David my servant. Where did Hashem find David? In Siddim. I mean, think about it. Why, of all places, was Mashiach have to come from Siddim, which is basically the most tamei place in the world? Why from Siddim? So let's turn to the Arach Chaim HaKadosh, in Parak Mem Tes, Pasuk Zayin, on Sefer Bereshis. This is one of the most mystical Orach Chaim's in the Chumash. But just to see some of his words, Orach Chaim HaKadosh prefaces his words by saying that he's going to tell us Hakdama Achas Zaka Ubara, a very clean and pure introduction. Asher Heiru Einenu Bidrachim Bidvarim Nechmadim E'ar Tarasenu, a clear and bright introduction that we've been beautifully illuminated with the light of our Torah. And that is, Orach Chaim HaKadosh says like this: all the souls of mankind were on the great tree. The name of this great tree was Adam HaRishon. And all of these souls would have emanated from Adam HaRishon in a holy and kosher way. However, when Adam HaRishon sinned with the Eitz Hadas, the forces of impurity hijacked and kidnapped many of these holy neshamas. And through the history of time, through the time span of world history, it is the avodah of Klal Yisrael to retrieve and redeem these captive neshamas. Say, what in the world does this mean? Listen to the words. Orach Chaim HaKadosh says there are different ways to redeem these captive neshamas. Sometimes, if a person is on a very high level, learns Torah, does mitzvahs, he draws forth these holy neshamas, and that is the concept of Gerim who have streamed to Klal Yisrael throughout our history. But sometimes, the holier the neshama is, the stronger the koiches hatumah hold on to that neshama, and the forces of tumah will not relinquish that neshama unless it's with a seeming act of isser and impropriety. For example, Dinah. Who did Dinah extract from Shechem? Says Orach Chaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Hananya ben Tradion. Rabbi Hananya ben Tradion was in Shechem. When Dinah lived with Shechem, it relinquished and released the neshama of Rabbi Hananya ben Tradion. This is marumas in the word V'hinei Rachavas Yadayim. Rachavas is Rashi Tevos, Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion. Now, says the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, but sometimes the holy neshamas realize on their own that they originate in holiness, and they return to the Jewish people on their own, as in the case of Rus, who returned to Klal Yisrael, and the neshama of Mashiach that was relinquished with the Davar Maguna of Rus, who came to the world through the relations of Lot and his two daughters. Take a look at the matters. Take a look at number 22. On Zois Chukas HaTorah. Zeh she'amar HaKasav. Mi yitein tahar mitameh. Who could extract purity from impurity? Lo echad, not one. Kagoin Avraham Terach. Avraham came from Terach. Chizkiah me'achaz. Yoshia me'amayin. Mardechai mishimi. Yisrael me'yavdei kechavim. Mitziva kain. Mi'asa kain. Mi'gazar kain. La yechidai shalaylam. God is the only one who can bring a tzaddik from a rasha, a tahar from a tameh. Comes the Ramchal in his classic words that not only does this medrash mean of mi'yitein tar mitame, that a tzaddik could come from a rasha, says the Heilige Ramchal in the Megillas Shiurim. The Ramchal writes very mystical words. He says, Hine yadua, number 23, l'cha asher sam elakim b'liba ruach chachma v'das. Anyone in whose heart the Rivan Shem has placed wisdom and knowledge. Ki nishmas David Hamelech haisa meluveshes b'klipas Moav. The soul of David was cloaked in the shell of Moav. V'emrus yatsa, and he was extracted through Rus. Ki gam al zeh nemar mi yitein tahar v'tameh. Even this concept of a holy soul coming to the world through a davar maguna is also an illustration of the concept of mi yitein tahar mitameh. Hashem yelchu nesivais. All the acts of God go through pathways and byways. Hagam ki ba'orchos hakalkalos, although they're often complex and crooked. Ki kazel l'chol haneshamas hagdolos kara. This is what occurs to all great souls. Belechtam l'toich haklipos lishal shalal v'lavos vaz. Okay, so more of Rabbi says, so we see from here that David HaMelech's ancestry had to be clouded in great mystery, in seeming impropriety. Why, of all the nations of the world, did David have to come from Moav? Why Moav? Why not Chiti, Prizi, Yevusi, Girgashi, Amoyin? Why Moav? What is special about Moav? So the Shemi Shmuel, the Rebbe of Sachachav, brings from his Zayda, the Katzker, Right? The Shem Shmuel's father was Avnei Nezer. Avnei Nezer was the son-in-law of the Kotzker. The Kotzker made the following enigmatic statement. Inyan Hamelech lahaya nimtza b'Yisrael. The concept of royalty was not found in the Jewish people, and it needed to be taken out of Mayav. Says the Shem Yishmael, let me explain the words of my Zayda. Inherently, the concept of Malchus is foreign to the Jewish people. How could one person be elevated among another Jew? We're all Ki'ish Echad, B'leiv Echad. We're all one. How could there be a Melech? For there to be Malchus, you need something called, you need a Gaiva de Kedusha. But there is no Gaiva in Klal Yisrael. The hallmark trait of Moav is Gaiva. The Navi says about Moav, V'hine ga'a Moav ga'a ma'od. Shamanu ga'ayin Moav ga'a ma'od. Moav is very haughty. But there's no haughtiness inherently in the Jewish people's DNA. We needed to borrow the Gaiva of Moav and harness it like Kedusha in order for there to be a concept of Malchus in Klal Yisrael. That's Pshat in the Kotzker. And what's light got to do with this? Why does David have to come from light? The truth is, this is an amazing thing. All the imahos come from Haran, the brother of Abraham. Can I have out of the Chumash for a minute? So, do you remember Avraham Avinu had a brother? Avraham Avinu's brother's name was Haran. And Avram is nachar es Haran. Be'ela told Terach halis. Avram is nachar es Haran. V'Haran hoiled es light. Haran hoiled es light. And who came from light? David Hamelech, Mashiach, Sarah. Haran was Shem Eshes Avram Sarah, Shem is Milka, Bas Haran, Avi Milka, Vavi Yiska. Haran was the father of Yiska. That means Haran was the father of Sarah. Milka, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. So everybody came from Haran. Who's this Haran guy? What's the grace Yichus of Haran? Says the Sas Emes. So they threw Avram into the fire. They said, Haran, what would you like to do? He said, what I would like to do is I'm going to see what happens to Avram. That's what I would like to do. I don't need to take sides yet. It's a very good lesson in life. But what do you hold? You don't. What difference does it make what I hold? I'll wait and see what I hold. So Avram was saved. I'm on his team. He was killed. Rashi says anyone who is Moiser Nefesh on condition to be saved will not be saved. Aber Lamaisa, he died al Kiddush Hashem. He was Moiser Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu einu mekapeach schar kol beria. So therefore, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Mashiach comes from Haran. He's the first person who died al Kiddush Hashem. Okay, Marav Rabbi, so now we understand some of the ancestry of David. It has to be shrouded in tremendous mystery. From the doors of light, Yehuda and Tamar, Rus and Boaz, Yishai. It has to come from Moav. It has to come from Sidon. It has to come from Haran. Marav Rabbi, fasten your seatbelts. Matzasi David Avdi. Where was David Hamelech found? In Sidon, by the saving of the Bnei Light. Now I want to share with you, we're not the only ones who are privy to this medrash, that David was found in Sidon from the doors of light, but Klal Yisrael had a tradition that a Preda Toiva will come from Moav, who will be Ima Shal Malchus. This was a well-known tradition in the Jewish people. In fact, when Machlon and Kilyan died, and Nami was going to return to Eretz Yisrael, so she tells her two daughter-in-laws, Yitein Hashem lachem umitzena menucha. The word umitzena is spelled without a hey. It's written umitzan. Lashon yachid, for like the alshech, it should say umitzena, plural. She's talking to Rus and Arpa. Why does it say mitzen without a hey? Says the alshech, because they have a tradition that there will be a Preda Toiva who will cause Matzasi David Avdi, who will be a Metzia from Sodom and Light, who will bring about Mashiach. So Nami is giving a bracha to this girl, to these two girls. I give you a bracha that from you, one of you should taka be the Preda Toiva from which Mashiach will come. Mitzena is a play on words from the words Matzasi David Abde. That says the Alshach even further, that the tradition was that a Giyorus would come from Mayav and be the progenitor of Mashiach and bring about the Sakei Noilo and Malchus Shakai. Now Naomi never knows for sure, although she gave them a bracha. But after she sees how Arpa ultimately goes back to her family, and she sees the tremendous Mesiras Nefesh of this girl, Rus, who converts and comes Tachas Kanfei Shechina, and embraces Torah mitzvahs, which such Mesiras Nefesh, and she's a tsanua, Naomi says, look, there's no time like the present. She's the one. She's the one. Says the Alshech, what got into Naomi to tell Rus, Vayhi b'shachvai, v'yadadas hamakoim asher yishkav sham, uvas, v'galis margeloisa v'shachaft, v'hu yagid lach eis asher ta'asun. Had Naomi lost it? To quote the Alshech, hakezoina tasas kalasa. Says the Alshech, no. Ki meiroiv chachma v'ruach elokim b'kir ba'asus azois. Naomi was acting with great divine inspiration. Imagine like this. Imagine you go to the Gadol Hadar. By the way, on that day, the Gadol Hadar's wife passed away. And you want to offer a shich to the Gadol Hadar. You say, I have a great idea, Gadol Hadar. There's this convert lady. She was married to two guys who were such big avaryonim that they both dropped dead from living with her. I have a good shidduch for you. A Giyores who killed her two first husbands. Yeah. Katlanis. Chasam Sofer says, by the way, Chasam Sofer says she was Eishes Machloin and Eishes Kilyoin. It's Mavur in the Psukim, Chasam Sofer says. Because at first it says she's the wife of one of them, and then later in the Megillah it says Eishes Machloin. Who was she? When the first husband died, the other one did Yibam to her. She killed both of them, the Chasam Sofer says. So how in the world is Boaz going to go for the shidduch? I mean, why would anyone go for the shidduch, let alone the Gadol Hadar? The only way Boaz would ever go for the shidduch is if somehow she could manage to convince Boaz that my hunch, that she's the Preda Toiva from which Mashiach would come, if she could convince him that her hunch is right, maybe he'll go for the shidduch. So how is she going to convince Boaz that her hunch is right? That she's a descendant of the daughters of light, and she's come back to the world who the daughters of light had in mind. They wanted to bring about the Melech HaMashiach. How are we going to convince Boaz of this? Well, there's a concept of Rechela Basa Rechela Avda. One ram follows the next. Ka'ovda ima, ka'ovde barta. Like mother, like daughter. Rus somehow has to act to Boaz like the daughter of light did, and then maybe it will jog Boaz's mind that maybe she's Taka the Preda Toiva, and maybe he'll go for the Shidduch. So Naomi says to Rus, here's the plan, Vehi b'shachvai. When he's lying down, you're going to go balot, the pasuk says, a remez to light. V'golis margeloisa v'shachaft, you're going to uncover his raglayim, and what the benois light did to light, you're going to try with Boaz, so that he realizes maybe you're not just a regular convert from Moav, but maybe you are Taka the Preda Toiva. And when Boaz realizes that, and he knows he's a descendant of David, because Boaz also knew Baruch HaKodesh, Mashiach would come from him. After all, the Medrash says he measured out to her Sheish Sa'orim. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin, that's a remez to the six descendants of Malchus Beis that would come from him. And then shockingly, the Alshech HaKadosh reveals something to us that only the Alshech can know. That not only was Rus a descendant of the oldest daughter of light, but Rus was the oldest daughter of light. Rus was the Gilgal of the oldest daughter of light. She came back to the world. She lived with light, Nechaya Me'avinu Zara, to bring about Melech HaMashiach, and now she came to seal the deal. In fact, says the Alshach, the gematria of Bas Light Aim Moyav is the same as He Rus HaMoyaviyah. B'mispar Katan. Okay? It's not my opinion. I don't go there. This is what the Alshach writes. So that night, all of a sudden, Boaz wakes up at midnight, and she says, Brucha at Lashem biti, heitaft chastich ha'achroin min harishayin. Your final chesed is greater than your first chesed. What's the meaning of those words? Says the Ashach HaKadosh. Boaz is telling her, I know what's going on over here. Not only are you a descendant of the daughter of light, you are the daughter of light, and your final chesed of living with me now is a greater chesed than the oldest daughter living with light originally. Why? Because originally it's not such a big chesed. Who else? There's no other shidduch on the market. She thought everybody else was dead, that the world was destroyed. So she did a good thing, but there's no alternative. But now they're much younger men who you could have pursued. This chesed is greater than the last chesed. So what? Says the Alshach. There's a klal, Yeridas Hadoros, that you can never do something greater than the tata and the mama, than the ancestors. It is impossible for a person, says the Alshach, to do an act of chesed or any act in ruchnius on a higher level than in previous dairos. So how is it shayich hitav chastich ha'achar min harishon? It must be because you are her. You're not a later generation. You are the oldest daughter of light who came back to this world to fulfill your pledge of unachaya me'avinu zara, says the Alshach HaKadosh. Boaz did not live much longer than that. Boaz lived with her that night, and in the morning, Boaz had passed away. But that was enough for Ruth to conceive Oved, who Avi Yishai, he Avi David. Says the Medrash, this is what it means, Matzasi David Avdi. The Rebbeinu Shalom, the master planner, was orchestrating events back in time from the daughters of light, Yehuda v'Tamar, Ruth and Boaz, Yishai, mixing in the zechus of Haran, the zechus, the merit of Moav, which is Gaiva, which was translated to Kedusha, and the end of Sefer Rus gives us the lineage of Ve'ela Todos Peretz, Hoiledes Chetzroin Hoiledes Ram Hoiledes Aminadav Hoiledes Nachshoin Hoiledes Salmon Hoiledes Boaz Hoiledes Oved Hoiledes Yishai Hoiledes David. Frek the Medrash. Why do I need all these generations? Says the Medrash number 33. It's like somebody who lost a jewel has to sift through the sand until he gets to the diamond. So too HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Matzoyre chayali liyachis, Peretz, Chetzun, Ramina, now Salmon, Boaz, Eva, Oved, Yishai. It's all for the diamond. It's all for you. Matzasi David Avdi b'Shem Kachi Meshachtiv. Marv Rabbi Sai. The Yushalmi tells us that David Hamelech was nifter on Shavuos, and we have a tradition. Likewise, he's born on Shavuos. Let me tell you one secret, and we'll end with this. There are 49 levels of Kedusha. We know Moshe Rabbeinu there are 50 levels of Kedusha. Moshe was given all of them. Chasar achash, shenemar vad chasrei miyam elkim. That means we have access to 49 levels of Kedusha. If there are 49 levels of Kedusha, corresponding to that, there must be 49 levels of Tumah. Zel umazeh asalekim. La'azazel stands for Ze lu'umazeh asalekim. Moav is 49. Those are the 49 levels of Tumah. If you overcome Moav, through the 49 days of Sfira, LeKedusha, who's born on day 50, David Hamelech is born on day 50. David Hamelech is born on day 50. That's from Rav Moshe Shapiro. That Moav is 49 levels of Tumah. Through the 49 days of Sfira, we count 49 levels of Kedusha. If we're Zoicha, we'll be Zoicha to David on the 50th day. The 49 levels of Tumah, Klala, are light. Light is Lashon of Klala. Layit oleh abaye. That's why there's a Shita of the Master Vitri, that when you count Sfira, part of the Nusach HaSfira is that the bracha is part of the Nusach, because we need to overcome the klala of 49 days, the klala of Moav, and we overcome, that's why we get out during the Yemei Sfira, the 49 klalas of Pashas B'chul Kaisai, we throw it down the drain, so that when the Shavuos starts, the new year, we're Zoichet to the Leda of David Hamelech, Sheyava Ibn Hervi Yameinu, Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.